What up, world? All right, let's look into the NBA season here into Bleacher Report on the NBA section with Mr. Andy Bailey. We're going to check out one trade target for every NBA team this offseason. We're pretty much jumping into the season overall. Wasn't the craziest offseason, but a couple shakeups, a couple key players. But let's jump into each team and kind of give our feedback and go more into detail within here in the NBA landscape. All right, number one with the Atlanta Hawks targeting Michael Porter Jr. Now, interesting. Well, first thoughts for me, the Atlanta Hawks gave away the Dejounte Murray experiment after one season with Trae Young, and they weren't able to make the NBA playoffs. They were in the NBA play-in, but weren't able to make anything go more in depth. There were injuries with the Atlanta Hawks last season, but looking at the Atlanta Hawks as of right now, I see them still as a play-in team. Potentially, they could squeeze in as an 8 seed to potentially make the playoffs. I don't think that's going to be the case within the Eastern Conference. There's a lot more questions within their team just for a quote-unquote Michael Porter Jr. type of player. Trae Young is still their cornerstone. There was some potential trade talks of Trae Young going over to the San Antonio Spurs, which resulted in Chris Paul taking that away from that whole pretty much quote-unquote scenario. The Atlanta Hawks in general, I believe they just need to blow it up. Clint Capella and Bogdan have been on that team for far too long. They need to let those two players go. If you want to bring in a Michael Porter Jr., it's quote-unquote fine with that. It's no big deal. I don't think Atlanta has a true cornerstone to retool on that phase. I think they'll give one more year of Trae Young before a trade destination for him is actually going to be resulted. But overall, it's a fine piece to have Michael Porter Jr. The Denver Nuggets are not going to let that happen. I don't see the trade assets for the Atlanta Hawks to do so. Plus, you just drafted your number one pick. As of right now, I would say stay focused on Trae Young, the number one pick. Go ahead and let go of Clint Capella, Bojan Bogdanovic, and pretty much have a retool in that foundation. But nothing too much for Atlanta. I wouldn't put much into there. All right, number two, the Boston Celtics. Honestly, as of right now, the Boston Celtics are good enough as they are. They brought in Lonnie Walker Jr., who's going to be explosive off the bench. Very underrated player. A lot of teams weren't even giving him the night or day. I mean, he was in Brooklyn last year, and teams still weren't trying to pick up Lonnie Walker. I mean, you can get him on a veteran minimum type deal, and I believe he's around 25 years of age, if not that, 24, 25, 26, somewhere around that bubble. But for Boston, they're pretty much set where they're at. They just won the NBA championship. They're able to retain their key players. Get Hauser, that big deal. Kevin Love, he quote-unquote would be a good fit on Boston, but they're already deep enough as it is. Honestly, for the Boston Celtics, I would just pretty much hold back on any potential big moves for trade scenarios. All right, the Brooklyn Nets for Fred VanVleet. All right, number one, the Houston Rockets are not going to trade away Fred VanVleet. They're on the emergence of making their first NBA playoff appearance in a hot minute or so. I believe since 2020, when James Harden and Russell Westbrook within that experiment. But yeah. No, but the Brooklyn Nets, as of right now, they're a mess. I believe they're going to be the worst team in the Eastern Conference. If not the worst team, then right there with the Washington Wizards. So 14th or 15th seed. Now, you do have the quote-unquote emergence of Ben Simmons, as they say that for every offseason. You still have Dennis Schroeder on the team. You have some of these veterans, but they don't make sense. There's no direction for the Nets. You only can build off Cam Thomas and as well as with Nicholas Claxton. But besides that, bringing in Fred VanVleet is just still going to keep you as a playing team or a middle of the pack. They need to go full rebuild mode. You need to get off that Ben Simmons contract. You need to get off Dorian Finney-Smith, that contract, and other veterans as well. And just looks as of right now, Nicholas Claxton and Cam Thomas are the building pieces. So build off the draft with those guys. I would not go for Fred VanVleet with that contract for him being 30, 31 years of age. No. The Nets need to go full rebuild mode. All right, the Charlotte Hornets. It's not a bad piece for Jared Allen. I know they have Mark Williams as of right now. I think he's 2 years in the league or so. The Hornets have a lot of question marks within their team. trying to think in a whole aspect. Jared Allen would be a fine piece. He was injured last year in the NBA playoffs. But as overall, the Charlotte Hornets are in a new foundation with LaMelo Ball. You do have their young piece out there. You do have Miles Bridges, who has question marks on their end. It's not one piece for the Charlotte Hornets to make a huge, splash on their side. I would say if I'm Charlotte, now this is a long shot. Let's see how it goes with the Pelicans and Zion this year. But I think the most ideal situation, if they're going to keep LaMelo Ball, is to try to rebuild that team and bring in Zion Williamson. I mean, throw out the whole farm for Zion Williamson and pair him with LaMelo Ball. That'd be a great foundation. They're both around the same age, around 24, 25, something like that. I would hold off before doing that for Jared Allen. Now, is that a Hail Mary move? Sure. But then again, if I'm rebuilding the Hornets, no one's coming in free agency. I have LaMelo Ball. I have my young piece Miller, which you're going to have to put him in a trade scenario for Zion Williamson. But I think that'd be a good start to a foundation. Food for thought. Something to think about. Because the Hornets haven't made the playoffs I think since they played Dwayne Wade in that first round series in 2016. I may be wrong, but it's been a minute. All right, the Chicago Bulls. Hachimura. Listen, the Bulls are a mess as well. They need to let go of Zion or Zach LaVine. He needs to get out of there. Nikola Vucevic, him as well. Torrey Craig, all these veterans, guys. It's been 3-4 years too late with the Chicago Bulls. They need to blow it up. They're probably going to have to get rid of Lonzo Ball if he's injured once again and blow up that experiment. But Chicago needs to go on a full rebuild. Rui Hachimura, he's a nice piece that could potentially start for a team or come off the bench as a 6th or 7th man. But bringing him on to this Chicago Bulls team makes zero sense. They have no direction. They need to blow it up overall. Management Chicago's is trash, and they need to get rid of their head coach, Billy Donovan. The Cleveland Cavaliers with Trey Murphy III. Cleveland is another team that I don't like the roster. Bringing in Trey Murphy III will be somewhat ideal as a starting 3 guard. Now you have Max Strus right there who's going to be fighting for that. But listen, I like their front court. You got Evan Mobley. You got Jared Allen. That's fine enough as it is. I'm holding off on Jared Allen for another year or two to see if he's good with injuries. You brought back Donovan Mitchell on that huge contract. He's cool being your cornerstone. I think number one, they need to get rid of Darius Garland and bring in a true point guard that can feed off the ball. And it's a 3D type player, right? To play him off with Donovan Mitchell. Now, different players, potential Malcolm Brogdon could be in there. To go for a Ben Simmons would be somewhat ideal. Something if I'm more Cleveland, I'm thinking about that more long term. All right, with the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas right now, they're 11-12 deep. And I like the scheme of their team. I like how things are going so far. There's going to be question marks with Klay Thompson with his, number one, his health and his shooting, and him being 34 years of age. Defense from Derrick Jones Jr. departing has lowered. You brought in Najee Marshall as well. You brought in Quentin Grimes. So those 2 or 3 guys who can kind of come in. You retained and brought back Spencer Dinwiddie from a year or two ago. I like Dallas. They're deep. I think right now they need to stay put. Kenrich Williams, even if he was on the team, if the Thunder would take on a Dwight Powell or Maxi Kleber expiring contract and with a second round pick or so, I would entertain that deal and I'll definitely move forward with the Mavericks. But right now, I say stay. Next, the Denver Nuggets. Okay, Nuggets lost KCP. That was a huge loss for their starting 2 guard, who's a 3-and-D type player and a 2-time veteran champion with the Lakers and also with the Denver Nuggets. Now, bringing another 3D guy like Cody Martin, that's completely fine. There's question marks who's going to be their starting shooting guard. We see an emergence of Christian Braun. You do have the new rookie that came in as well. You brought in Russell Westbrook as a backup point guard. Let's see how that experiment goes. I still believe Russ will be on that team even come during the playoff time. Now, the big question mark for the Denver Nuggets, I would say, is bringing a backup center. You still have DeAndre Jordan, which he's 2 years too late being on that team. I'm surprised he actually hasn't retired. He's still on a veteran minimum type deal. But no, the Denver Nuggets need to focus on a backup center on it with Nikola Jokic. That's something they need to focus on big time within there. A defensive anchor, I would assume. I'm trying to think out there. I mean, Andre Drummond signed with the Sixers. That would have been somewhat ideal within that time. Potentially go for JaVale McGee. I know he's probably a year or two left till he retires the NBA. Or even a Dwight Howard. But those would be ideal big men to back up. So that's something the Nuggets, I would focus more on there. They do need three-point shooters as well. But let's see the emergence of their young guys. The Detroit Pistons with Brandon Ingram. Interesting. No, I don't think that's still a good foundation. Ingram's around 27, 28. You have Cade Cunningham, who's young in the league, around 23 years of age. You want to build off him, right? And they're young guys. The Detroit Pistons, you still have Tobias Harris and Beasley, and who else came in there? Tim Hardaway Jr., who are going to be somewhat expiring contracts pretty soon. Just let alone, you want to bring veterans to get a couple wins in, but they're going to trade those guys within the next season or even midway during the season. I would focus more on the draft. Build up that draft capital, that equity within there. Kind of go off there, but there's not a true number one pick I would look for if I'm the Detroit Pistons as of right now. They're not going to make the NBA playoffs. They're not going to make in the play-in. They're going to be around a 12 to a 15 seed. Now, they're going to improve from last year, of course, and you're seeing emergence of Cunningham on their side. But Detroit as of right now, I would kind of stay put as of right now. All right, the Golden State Warriors with Jimmy Butler. Butler's got one more year left on his contract with the Miami Heat. There's been disgruntles with Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler, which everyone's been kind of expecting Jimmy Butler would potentially leave after this NBA season. Potentially, we've heard names like the Brooklyn Nets. We've heard names like the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors with Steph Curry being 36 and another year will be 37, and you're probably going to have a year or two left to Draymond Green. Sure, why not go all in with Jimmy Butler, who's around 33, 34 years of age. That's something that can happen as an emergence, let go of Andrew Wiggins' contract and kind of build off there. The Warriors, what they need to focus on is getting a true big on their team. It looks like they're going to run Draymond Green again at center, which is blasphemous. It's laughable. They need a big on their team. Now, there's been talks potentially bringing in Larry Markkinen, who doesn't play the center. He plays with 3, sometimes with 4. So, I mean, if you brought in Larry Markkinen, you can have Larry Markkinen and Draymond at the 4 and 5, which I'll let slide because Larry Markkinen is a young all-star and young stud out there that's someone that the Warriors, I think they could benefit off of. If they're going for championship aspirations, sure, you can bring in a Jimmy Butler, but that's pretty much a 2-year experiment. And those guys are in their 35 to 36 years of age. Question marks. I'm not too crazy about it, but it's something like, okay, whatever. Can make sense. But yeah, let's see how the Buddy Hield experiment works. I think they need to let go of Andrew Wiggins. If Kuminga is not going to excel once again, look to package those guys up, get Larry Markkinen in there, if not Jimmy Butler. But they definitely need a center on their team. Jonas Valanciunas would be pretty ideal, or even maybe a Nikola Vucevic. Those guys need to get out of their teams with the Wizards and the Bulls. The Warriors, they need to step it up. They haven't been able to retool ever since, the higher-ups left. Joe Lacob. All right, the Houston Rockets potentially going for Kevin Durant. Now, that's an interesting one. I think I heard about this a couple weeks ago. The Houston Rockets are in a good situation. I think they'll be a 4th or a 5th seed in the Western Conference. They got length. They got young guys. You got Jalen Green as emergence. You got Jabari Smith. You got Fred VanVleet. You got Dylan Brooks, who's going to be that chaotic 3-and-D player. You brought in Steven Adams. I like the Houston Rockets. Ime Udoka, they were 41-41 last year. Now, if you were able to go ahead and go for Kevin Durant, that's a team that could reach the 2nd, 3rd round, potentially in NBA Finals. I would say more of a 2nd, 3rd round as a peak so far, depending on what the team has dealt with. But if I'm the Rockets, I'm pretty much kind of staying put as of right now. You have a good team to begin with. Let's see how the young guys emerge. If anything, I would say probably look up for another veteran point guard. Because you did have your number 3 pick, who's going to be the backup to Fred VanVleet. So maybe like a Gabe Vincent, someone who's a veteran, 3D type shooter, would be more ideal. But Kevin Durant, Hail Mary. But let's see how the Phoenix Suns, how they go within this season, if they blow it up or not. The Indiana Pacers, Jeremy Grant, I would say no. He plays very similar to a Pascal Siakam. So Siakam is good where he's at the 4 within that team. Miles Turner at the 5. Yeah, but I think Jeremy Grant's, let me see his contract. All right, the LA Clippers with a quote-unquote Zach LaVine. Listen, if they bring in Zach LaVine, this team is pretty much going to be a middle-of-the-pack type team. I already expect the Clippers as it is to be a play-in team, potentially not even, but they're not making the NBA playoffs. Kawhi's going to be hurt. He's got another year or two till he retires in the NBA. Harden, he's around 34, 35 years of age. The team just doesn't have a foundation for any championship considerations. They're on the downfall. Paul George left. They're going to be a somewhat ruddy team, but they're older once again. You have older guys in the bench, PJ Tucker, Norman Powell. Some of these guys I expect to be gone to begin with. If anything, I think they need to go ahead. If they want to keep that James Harden Kawhi experiment for another year or two, I actually believe they should go for Jonas Valanciunas to be their starting center, put Zubac off the bench, build off kind of that foundation. Derrick Jones Jr., I like him a lot for any NBA team to be a contender. So I think that's a good foundation right there. But overall, they're not going to win a championship with Kawhi or James Harden. So really, there's nothing to lose. If they go for Zach LaVine, wow, okay, maybe make the playoffs, get bounced in the first round as an 8 seed. But I think ideally, I would just try to go for the Jonas Valanciunas. The Wizards want him gone. He's a proven veteran. I think Zubac is perfect coming off the bench for a team. I don't know why Zubac's been starting for 5 years, but that's my thoughts, to be honest. The LA Lakers with Trae Young? No, sir. No, that's a slap in the face. The LA Lakers with LeBron and AD, they have not been able to pretty much build the team correctly as they did in 2020. LeBron needs to run the 1. AD needs to run the power forward position starting within the game. Then put 3-and-D guys, then put a veteran center. So that's the foundation they need to go here. D'Angelo Russell needs to go away. They need to trade him away. Keep Austin Reeves. I'm fine if they trade away Vanderbilt and or Rui Hachimura. That's completely fine, but AD does not need to play the 5. The Lakers going for Jonas Valanciunas would be perfect at the starting 5. Ideally someone like Brook Lopez, but the Bucks are not going to trade him away. Jonas Valanciunas is perfect for their starting 5 within this team. Run LeBron at the 1, put Austin Reeves at the 2, AD at the 4, and then that's when you go and signal out for a true small forward out there. A veteran guy, a 3D. I know Harrison Barnes is on the Spurs, but someone like him would be more ideal as well within the team. I believe D'Angelo Russell actually needs to be a 6-man for a team. I think it takes the pressure off him, but the Lakers with Trae Young, no. You need LeBron playing the 1. They got to stop bringing all these point guards on this team like Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook. It's not ideal. The Memphis Grizzlies with Cameron Johnson. Now that'd actually be a pretty good fit with the Grizzlies, I'm not going to lie. The Grizzlies are a team, I don't know if they'll be in the playoffs or they can be in the lower echelon like 9th or 10th seed. A lot of question marks within their team, but you do have the young center coming in as a first-round pick who'll be starting. So that puts Jared Jackson back into the 4. You have John Morant returning in this NBA season. Desmond Bain still at your 2 within there. You have Marcus Smart coming off the bench. So Cameron Johnson would be pretty ideal. I really don't have much on the Memphis Grizzlies, to be honest, to go a little more further. But yeah, let me skip on them. I don't have much to say. The Miami Heat with Trae Young. I believe the Miami Heat, this is their last season before they blow it up. They're going to keep Bam Adebayo. I believe Jimmy Butler is going to be gone. That experiment's going to be done with. You still have Tyler Herro out there, so I'm not trading away Tyler Herro for a potential Trae Young experiment, and I don't want them within my backcourt together. Miami has some other concerns they need to deal with. They need a true starting center and backup bigs on their team, which they haven't done within so many years. I believe Bam Adebayo playing the 4 would be more natural. Someone like a Brook Lopez coming at their 5 would be ideal. A true big within their team that could spread the floor. A couple question marks within there, but I would say focus more on a big if I'm the Miami Heat. Bringing in a veteran point guard would be ideal also, or you run Tyler Herro at the 1. I don't like Terry Rozier starting, but that's just me as of right now. The Miami Heat are going to be pretty much a 7th or 8th seed They're not going to be in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference within their team. All right, what we got here? The Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks have so many questions. They're not a championship contending team coming with their coaching staff, or as well as they don't have a bench. They have a bunch of older veterans, one-year deals. Out of the 15 guys, you probably have like around 10 players on a one-year deal. I expect this team to blow it up next year. They're out of the playoffs, out in the first round, maybe even the second round as well. But sure, if you want to go for Jordan Clarkson, trade away with what's the cat's name? My mind blanked, but the white dude who plays the shooting small forward position, who won the championship with them. I think they both have around $9 to $10 million on their contract, so they're desperate. The Bucks, they'll make that move. It is what it is. To be honest, I don't know what the much the Bucks can really do within their team. All right, the Minnesota Timberwolves back again with Jeremy Grant. I think Minnesota's good where they're at. Jaden McDaniels within right there. I like when they brought in Dante Vitangelo. He's done amazing in the preseason. Very smooth, and he's got that motor within him. Expect him to be Sixth Man of the Year or Most Improved Player on that side. But Minnesota overall, they're in a good position where they're at. I don't think they need to make any true big moves, so I'm going to skip on that. The Pelicans with DeAndre Ayton. I would say no. I think the Pelicans, a perfect situation for them would bring in Nicholas Claxton at their 5 to put Zion at the 4. I think that they need to focus on the big because right now they're trying to have some of their small forwards run the center position. Herb Jones, and that's not ideal. Zion needs to play the 4. I think Nicholas Claxton would be most ideal. And then also, I would like to have CJ McCollum come off the bench as a 6 man and bring in a 3D guy to play the 2, unless you're just having Jones run the 2, but that's my thoughts. The New York Knicks with Marcus Smart, that would be pretty ideal within their culture. They're very scrappy, and they're going for that championship. The Knicks, they need to bring in a backup center or trade away Mitchell Robinson to bring in a true center like a Jonas Valanciunas. That team needs to go big. I know most times they're going to run small, but either coming with a backup guard like a Marcus Smart would be ideal, but then again, a Valanciunas running your 5 would be ideal if Mitchell Robinson, comes back if you're able to trade him. And another backup big within their team. What else is out there? Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, again, those are ideal big men. They're out there to go for. Something to think about. And another backup point guard. I think if you're not going to go with Marcus Smart, you can go with Patrick Beverley, who's cheaper you can sign up for $2 to $5 million for Patrick Beverley, who's, I would say more of that. Focus on getting a true big and then bring in Patrick Beverley as that backup. Okay, the Oklahoma City Thunder with Trey Murphy III. Surprisingly enough, this would be an ideal fit, but I would say the Thunder around 10 to 12 deep as it is, with a bunch of young cats. So I think they need to stay put and not make any trades as of right now. Stay put for the Thunder. I think they're either the number 1 or number 2 favorites to come out of the Western Conference as of right now. Okay, the Orlando Magic with Darius Garland. That's not a bad trade put as of right there. If I'm getting Darius Garland, I may have to make him my backup point guard. Keep Jalen Suggs at the 1. I'm trying to think. Overall, I have the Magic as a team that's going to be a dark horse. Not for championship contending wise, but just in the playoffs of being a 4th or 5th seed, they're going to make some noise. I think they're going to go into the second round of the NBA playoffs, but I could see Darius Garland coming onto that squad. Philadelphia 76ers with Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter's a great 3-point shooter within the league. I'm trying to think with Philadelphia because they're stacked on point guards, which is good enough. They're good within their centers with Embiid and Andre Drummond and Paul Reed. I believe they just let go of Paul Reed, so they need a third backup center. Honestly, this guy hasn't been in the league in a minute, but I would like to see Montrezl Harrell within that team to play the 4 and for him to come off the bench, bring some energy. I think someone like him, a defensive-minded person, would be ideal to pick up. But for a trade partner as of right now, I think the 76ers need to hold off. All right, next, the Phoenix Suns. This team has so many question marks. Number one, they need a true point guard. I know they're going to put Tyus Jones as their starting point guard, which he's a nice player, but I don't believe he's a true point guard. Let me backtrack. He's not a true starting point guard for a championship contending team. He's more ideal to come as a backup for a point guard. Now that's his perfect niche and his perfect role for a team. But someone like the Phoenix Suns, a true point guard within this team, actually, this is a hot take, but I would say, well, number one, it should have been Chris Paul. They should have never let him go, but that's too late. But honestly, I think Ben Simmons would be perfect for this team. Not because he can't shoot, but just for him, number one, being 6'10 as a point guard, who can be able to run the floor, who can defend, who can set up players. That's most ideal. You can set up Devin Booker, you can set up Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal within this team. Another hot take, I would actually have Bradley Beal come off the bench. I think Bradley Beal in his career for a championship contending team should be a six man. I think that's the most perfect situation for him. If you go for Ben Simmons, you also need to bring in a true 4 and a 5. Nurkic is not the case. He's weak. He's soft. He has no playoff success. He's not a defensive anchor. You need to let go of Nurkic, get him out of there. You could potentially trade away Royce O'Neal's contract as well. But again, I've said this name so many times, but he's a true championship contending 5 that's out there. Jonas Valanciunas. If you can get Valanciunas at the 5, you can make a trade also to bring in Marvin Bagley at the 4, get Ben Simmons at the 1, get Booker at the 2, KD at the 3. I think that's a perfect starting 5 for within this team. They have length, they have defense, they have shooting, they have they can go ahead and really make other teams' life pretty miserable, both in the paint and on the perimeter. That's how I kind of see the Phoenix Suns. And you got Bradley Beal coming off the bench. I know they're going to be way over the luxury tax, but again, you paid these guys for a reason. But overall, this team needs to have Booker at the 2, KD play the 3. I would have Bradley Beal off the bench. Needed to work on a true point guard as well as a defensive big as their center. But that's my take. Whatever. And having Kelly Olynyk overall is not going to make a big difference. It's like, come on, man, why? He's a good player, but still. The Portland Trail Blazers, I fully expect them to be the 14th or 15th seed in the Western Conference. Hachimura, you can bring him on, that's fine, but overall, they have question marks. You have Malcolm Brogdon for another year. Are you still going to keep him on the team? Are you going to upgrade Scoot to that starting point guard position? Are you still going to roll with the experiment with Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton? And then is Chauncey Billups still going to be your true head coach? There's a lot more questions in Portland right now. They need to focus on a true rebuild. So Hachimura, who's a middle-of-the-pack type player, doesn't make a big difference for me to do any tip and scale. I want to see the progress of Scoot Henderson within the season to see if he can be that true number 1 or number 2 guy within my franchise. And also with DeAndre Ayton to see his progress as well. But right now I'm looking at a trade market to trade away Jeremy Grant within this team. Kind of see what else is out there. Well, if you are looking to quote-unquote rebuild also, a potential Jeremy Grant trade for Jonathan Kuminga could be potentially in the works for Golden State. That's more direction I would go down with if I'm Portland. The Sacramento Kings with Marcus Smart. It could be the case. There's talks of Sacramento potentially bringing in Brandon Ingram and or Zach LaVine on the team. I think that's the direction they're going to go with. I think Marcus Smart right now in the NBA for being paid around $21 million a year or so. Teams, how do I explain this right? He's an undersized guard who's around 30 years of age. There's not a big market for him, but there is somewhat on there. So if Sacramento makes this move, I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to go crazy on it. I think Sacramento as of right now, prior to any trades, is a 6th seed, if anything, with DeMar DeRozan on the team and around the first round exit. If they want to improve their benchmark Smart, that's fine. But right now, Sacramento is just kind of the middle of the pack type team. And there's question marks on De'Aaron Fox's contract. All right, Jimmy Butler with the San Antonio Spurs. Now, that's one I never even thought of. Interesting. Listen, Chris Paul's a perfect situation for putting him with Biana. If you want to compete now with the Spurs, like right now, having Jimmy Butler and Chris Paul has those alpha dogs to pretty much elevate the team with Wembanyama. I'm not crazy about having Jimmy Butler on that team. I think that's too much too quick. I think you want to develop some of the young guys as well. I think that would be too much too quick. But if Jimmy Butler is a free agent next season and proposing to go to the Spurs, I say sure, but I don't think Jimmy Butler would go that direction. He's played with enough younger guys. He wants to play with more veterans. But if I'm the San Antonio Spurs right now, I'm looking to put Wembanyama at the 4 and find a true big, a defensive anchor that can really steal that front court. So that's what I'm looking at if I'm the San Antonio Spurs. If I'm looking at the true 5s that are bigs out there, that are young, I'm trying to think who would be ideal with him and Wembanyama. I mean, again, Valanciunas, he's not young, but he could still be a true center if they want to bring him on there. I think Nicholas Claxton would be too thin, too skinny for to play that 5. I'm trying to think of a true 5 they can bring in who's on the market. I'll have to think a little more. The Toronto Raptors. Okay. When they say the Raptors have a young, solid core, I disagree with that. I mean, Emmanuel Quickley is nice, but he's not that guy to be your true number 1 on a team to build off of. That's just me as of right now. Emmanuel Quickley, of course, is going to be an excellent 6th man coming off any bench. He can start for many teams, but I'm not building everything off him. RJ Barrett, same process. I'm not building off him. I mean, he's a nice, great player, but those 3 with Quickley, Barrett, and Scotty Barnes as your quote-unquote big 3 to build off of is going to leave you as a play-in tournament type team. Toronto needs to rebuild it as anything. That's more of a bigger conversation. I don't have much expression go into that detail right now. But yeah, no, they need to go more to the rebuild, so they have bigger fish to fry. And again, there's a lot of NBA teams that we covered that are in just the middle of the pack that don't really have a true direction. And I haven't seen the NBA like this in a hot minute. Usually you'll see like 5 or 6 of those teams, but now we're up to like 13 pretty much in the NBA this season, which has to break records. The Utah Jazz with Trae Young. Honestly, this would probably be somewhat ideal for Utah. They can have Colin Sexton, be traded away. If they keep Larry Markin and have Trae Young within there. Actually, I kind of see this more the more I think about it, because Utah's in a weird direction. Because they're potentially wanting to trade away Walker Kessler and then Larry Markin and even Colin Sexton. Some of these young core guys, and then you have Jordan Clarkson who's in the trade market as well. You can go the Trae Young direction if you're keeping Walker Kessler, Larry Markkinen, John Collins, and such. That's completely fine. But if they're continuing to rebuild and bring in Trae Young, I disagree. I say go off the draft when it comes to that. Last team, the Wizards, probably going to be the worst team, or at least one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. Number 1, you can build a team off them with Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. If you're keeping one, keep Jordan Poole, let go of Kyle Kuzma. Jordan Poole needs to actually run as the starting 2 for a team and get a true veteran point guard to run that offense. Jordan Poole plays best as off the ball, coming off screens, kind of like an a la Golden State. Kyle Kuzma, he's around 29, 30 years of age. He's too immature. He needs to get out of there. He's inconsistent. Valanciunas, again, he's a player that's already on the books of potentially being traded. The team overall just needs to rebuild. They have bigger fish to fry. I'm not going to go too much in depth. There's not one player that can make a big deal or a big surge with the Wizards, but I don't know. These are my thoughts overall.